In today's episode, we are taking a deep dive into structured intuition, where I show you the theory behind the technique that allows truly anybody to access intuition at will. You've probably heard of the quantum field, or maybe you've watched the movie Matrix, but if you haven't, the quantum field is essentially an almost unimaginable amount of information that we're constantly surrounded with. And I don't know how they calculated the numbers. Maybe it was through intuition. But depending on the source, it ranges from 11 million to 400 billion bits of information that we're bombarded with per second. Imagine that, 400 billion bits of information per second that try to get into your system. That sheer number feels overwhelming, doesn't it? But our system is very smart. It filters out a ton of this information in order to allow us to even function. Because our brilliant system has a brain area called the reticular activating system, or RAS for short, that works together with a filter in our prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex makes sure that only the pieces of information arrive in our system that it perceives as relevant, which is then amplified in the RAS. Why is that? Because that sharpens our senses to danger and creates optimal conditions for relevant information to be processed. So together, this well-oiled system reduces the amount of information that enters our mind from these possibly 400 billion bits down to 40 to 200 bits per second, making it appear as if that is the only information available to us. And this is a good thing, because imagine if you were to consciously receive and process the input of all of your senses all of the time. That is overwhelm. So this process is what makes life viable and livable, actually. The downside, however, is that it will mainly retrieve the information that is needed to keep us safe, and it is programmed by our fears, our beliefs, and our primal instincts. But if, for example, you're thinking about buying a new car, you will suddenly notice that car everywhere, right? Or if you're pregnant or planning to have a baby, pregnant women abound. So the RAS is trainable. But if we let it run by itself, our world is likely to be very limited through our beliefs and past experiences, as the RAS keeps us very much in a known zone. Not necessarily comfortable, but definitely known. And we call this perception. As Gustave Flaubert said, there is no truth, there is only perception, which is why there are so many truths out there in the world. Everybody has their very own view of a situation, their very own filter based on their very own experiences, and therefore their very own set of information that is allowed to pass through these filters. So, the way I have learned to access intuition is by opening up that filter. Fun fact, if you are neurodivergent, this is probably your natural state. But I believe the reason why neurodivergents often struggle with this instead of it being an instant superpower is because they haven't learned how to handle this open filter quite yet. And how neurotypicals like me can access this space is by switching on the frontal lobe of our brain and activating our imagination. And like that, we open up to the premise that everything is possible. As children, we were often taught that we should stop daydreaming and to focus, but I strongly believe that daydreaming is essential if we want to create a world we love to live in and for our children to love to live in. But back to our process. So, in our imagination, we create a circle. Why a circle? If you've listened to the circle episode of the podcast, you will know that. But if you haven't, we use a circle because it is a container that has a strong integrity. It's also used in shamanism and many other ancient rituals, as it is considered to be a safe environment. And we then intend for the circle to contain only the relevant information about the topic we choose and want to address, and to keep out all the irrelevant gunk. So when we step inside of the circle, we will only receive what our soul or our hearts want us to know about this specific topic. It is not fear or survival based, but comes from a place of love and expansion. And this is also called awareness, in contrast to perception. So now, from this place of awareness rather than our perception, we receive information that is often beyond what our minds would come up with. So our minds would usually just see the green dot, but our hearts can deliver that yellow dot. and it is often beyond our known or comfort zone. It comes into our system through as images, words. It can be a physical sensation or simply a knowing, but mostly it's symbols. And these symbols have a specific meaning for you. And it's super fun to explore that. These specific bits of information may also randomly slip through the cracks of the RAS filter, which is intuition as we usually define it, and can be specific guidance or a gut feeling. But the advantage of this structured approach is that you can tune into anything, anywhere, at any time. There are some limitations to it, however, such as not to tune into another person's energy without their permission. That's just not ethical. And it's also not for fortune telling, as the information we receive is for this moment, right here and right now. And it helps me create my best timeline. But if I don't take the action steps that come through, we're changing timelines. And with that, the relevant information changes as well, if that makes sense. And also, unfortunately, it does not work for lottery. I tried, probably like most others who are new to this method, it just doesn't work. If you want to try this out, we have recorded a couple of processes in our Joy podcast, and I will leave the link to them in the show notes. And I am sure that there will be more of them in future episodes because that's just how we work. That's what we do. And because I use it in my coaching process as much as in my personal life. And I truly believe it has saved me a kidney and prevented a huge surgery. It has gotten me to commit to illustrating a book, even though my ego was scared as crap about that. I started this channel and our Joy podcast, and it has expanded my life in numerous other ways that I usually may not have dared to even think about. So, yes, try it out. Try with small things at first. And once you have the hang of it, try it with larger decisions and see what comes through. And take the action. Take the action that comes through. In the next episode of this intuition series, I will dive deeper into the concept of circles and how we can use them for tuning into our soul paths and our resistances to it, as well as how to get onto that soul path. See you there.